Welcome back to the Heroes of the Storm North America Fall Regional #1 here from Burbank in California, as we have our two teams decided for our winners match. It will be Naventic going up against Murloc Genius. But speaking of Murloc Geniuses, oh boy, what a way to start their campaign here in Group A, Dunk.
Yeah, they played amazing in that set. In game number 2, the Zagara play was just excellent. I mean, he put so much pressure on the map, got that early lead in the bottom lane, and they just never let go. They were full throttle the whole game. It was really impressive.
Yeah, and I feel like June, like we talked about, this is his first lane. Like, he played out of his mind in that series, keeping people alive whenever it was needed, even when they were split up, which is the hardest thing to do as a new support. So he's playing very, very well.
Is it the Korean heritage?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only answer, right? Like,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the brackets here for Group A, of course, with these two teams moving on through into the winners match. And of course, later on down the line, we will have Astral Authority going up against Denial Esports down toward the lower bracket. 3 more series today to figure out which 2 teams are going to be moving on into the semifinals, which is all important. So Murloc Geniuses proving that against Denial Esports there, they are more than a match with a 2-0. Moving forwards now, they've got to play against Naventic. Now, Naventic looked very strong going into their first series, Dunk.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, Denial was one of those kind of mystery value teams, right? They were coming from the roster apocalypse. They haven't been together as long as Naventic. So Murloc Genius is beating them, says, okay, Murloc Genius is a real contender. But are they at that top 2 NA level like Naventic or Gale Force? That's the question.
I don't honestly know. I'm hearing rumors that people are pretty confident that Murloc's going to take the series. And I think in that last one, obviously, they put up a really good showing. I'm not totally sold that that is the rise of Murlocs more than it is like the jitters / maybe a little bit of weak play coming on the side of Denial. But, I mean, they put up a far better performance than I expected with this roster.
Well, of course, on the other side, we have Team Naventic, a team that has looked pretty dominant in their first series, to say the least. One of the members that does comprise from this team is, of course, Zuna. We saw him in the first game playing the Tyrael, and then in the second game, what was he playing? Can't quite recall, but was it ETC?
I think so.
Regardless of that fact, I mean, he is a key component of their team. We've always seen him in the past having very, very heavy waves of aggression, but it seems like he always was able to now rein that in, and it's far, far more calculated.
Yeah, the tank swap seems to have worked really well for him. In that role, he can't get punished as easily for his hyper-aggressive plays. So when he's on that front line, bodying for positioning like he loves to do, now you don't want to focus the front line anyway a lot of the times. So he's totally in the right place, gets to land those clutch stuns. Really excellent play.
Yeah, he can't be punished as easily, but it really does come down to the rest of the team has to accent his aggression, right? Because if he's left alone, he won't necessarily die, but you lose so many resources and so much drawn from the support that they might be in a position of struggle. So as long as everybody follows up on him, which it seemed like they did pretty well in the first one, I think they'll be all right going through the next game.
There were strides of success for Murloc Geniuses with the kind of like double support or 1.5 support kind of play that they were going forwards for there against Denial Esports. But going up against Naventic, is that kind of style going to be as common from them? They may end up running against Double Warrior if Naventic wants it. We already heard from Zuna in his interview that there is the potential of that, especially if they're able to pick up Tyrael. But Tyrael bans have already come into the tournament very, very swiftly.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrael bans are going to be really high priority here, but the thing is, I feel like Astral got a lot of edge in the last set from their drafting. Their drafts, like the Lili to counter the Illidan, actually worked out really well. Their draft in Game 2, Zagara totally controlled the tempo of that game. The Double Warrior couldn't keep up. So if they can come to this game, yeah, let Naventic pick standard, but if they then counter with their own special brand of drafts, I think they could really put up a fight.
I agree. I would just my only kind of sentiment towards that as well would be that I think Denial, specifically like players like Glorong, have always been known to play certain heroes. So being able to plan for that far easier with Denial than it would be so much with Naventic. I feel like the hero diversity and strategy diversity is going to be harder to be prepped against.
Okay, I mean, is there anything in particular that really stood out for you from Murloc Geniuses? Aside from them being able to kind of gain that momentum with a Lili, gain that momentum with the Zagara, what were the more stable choices that they picked that shone for you? Like, I think in that last game, even Greymane wasn't going for more of a Worgen build, just going for more of a ranged poke build to try and kind of like synergize a little bit well for them. Is Murloc Geniuses like an all-round package here coming into this tournament?
It kind of feels like it. Like, I definitely, out of the second game, the two players that stood out when it came to mechanics and decision making was June and then also Fury. So like this situation, top lane, they get a 3-man mosh against them, but he's got Locust Swarm running the entire time.
Right.
Doesn't even get touched, mixed with the Tassadar shields on top of him. So a lot of very quick, small decision making out of that team together. I feel like they've just really pulled ahead in skill just because of that instant choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the synergy between June and Fury was really good.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of times where Fury's positioning put him right in the line of fire, but he only tanked exactly as much damage as he knew he could, and then backs up, gets the heal, but he never pulled extra cooldowns that were unnecessary. He never took free damage, it feels like, and June was always on point, saving the carries, but also keeping Fury alive. It looks really, really well coordinated.
Yeah, he was crisp. Very, very crisp. Of course, you know, one of the focal points of this tournament has been the roster changes throughout a lot of these teams that has run rampant. Let's hear from some of the players, in fact, as to what they think about current events.
The competitive scene has gone through like a roller coaster ride. It's had its ups and downs, of course, a lot of downs recently. Big teams such as like Tempo and Cloud9 leaving the scene. People are swapping constantly. It was a very difficult patch for everyone.
Basically, none of the teams really felt confident with their current rosters.
A lot of the teams have only been playing together for a few weeks because there's a huge roster apocalypse.
All the teams went to other teams and formed different teams. It was crazy.
The teams aren't necessarily as strong as they were before.
It kind of reset the scene. No one has long-term team synergy anymore.
It doesn't feel like there's a top 2 team in NA. It's just us above everyone else.
Pretty much any team could be #1.
Interesting to hear from the teams for sure there, as they feel it's a reset on the scene. Now let's get into the draft now for game #1. This is the winners match here, and Volstad gets through the bans and picked up very quickly here on Tomb of the Spider Queen for Murloc Geniuses.
Yeah, this is the first time we've actually seen Volstad make it into the game. Kerrigan, super high priority on this small map, absolutely devastating. Zagara as well.
But it leaves up Tyrael, which is something that we know has been high banned for a majority of the team, and Naventic, I think, really likes it. They go with the Thrall out of the gates. I also want to say that I really like the fact that Zagara was banned out here on the side of Naventic. You could shows their kind of priority, but then also with Murloc picking up and doing so well in the last series, I like that choice from them. But they already have a pretty solid solo. Obviously, Zagara's banned out. You have the Thrall, and then also Kel'Thas for the kill potential and wave clear.
Is the Thrall just to kind of compensate for the fact that they want that solo? Because very rarely do we actually see Thralls that highly prioritized nowadays.
Yeah, even Kel'Thas hasn't been picked that highly yet today.
Right.
So I think Naventic has something up their sleeve here.
It feels like something's up their sleeve. I agree. Murloc already picking the Greymane and then going with an Uther that early on. That's surprising to see. We've actually, so far, all of the games, we've seen Uther very high prioritization, even over the Rhaegar and some points so far. So it's caught me off guard, honestly. It's been a little bit surprising to see that in this tournament. But now Naventic, it's their turn to ban. I'm trying to think about what they want to be doing.
Well, it looks like they've got a really strong team comp setup lined up. So they just want to avoid getting PvE'd to death, I think. That's part of why they had the Zagara ban. Yeah. They just want to make Murlocs fight them 5v5.
All right, well, we're just waiting on it. They still have a lot of options open and available to them. Will we see Kerrigan get through any drafts throughout this tournament? That's the big question for me.
I don't know, to be completely honest. She has shown up everywhere, it really feels like so far.
So scary, though.
Yeah.
So dangerous.
Yeah, and then one thing you brought up, Dunk, specifically that I was thinking about is I agree with, like, when you look at their composition, it's so teamfight centric and really like solid so far with that Thrall and KT. But with Falstad already going to be picked up, I don't feel like they're going to be given everything that they want, right? Like, you have the Sundering, but there's always the counter response. Like, it's going to rely on a lot of gravity lapses. So I just feel like it's a little bit riskier than we've seen in some of the other drafts. Johanna and ETC going to be banned out.
Yeah, that makes the Warrior game very, very interesting here, considering that those two are gone. I guess the next go-tos are Tyrael for Naventic, obviously. So they're going to feel very comfortable with this.
Yeah, this is ideal for Naventic.
Yeah. It's an ideal situation for Naventic. They get Zool on top of this, so now they have a large amount of wave clear in that 4-man, and then stacking that on top of the double melee. We've seen this in Asia, we've seen it in China, we've seen it in Korea, we've just seen it everywhere. So right now they have insane team fighting potential for Naventic, and now Murlocs with the counter response. They still need a tank. The tank pool's been choked to pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What are they going to be going with here? We know that Johanna is going to be off the table with the EGC. Tyrio's already going to be picked up. It could be a double tank. They could move into that route right now. It usually doesn't thrive too much into Tyrael.
Or an Uberak. They do very much so enjoy that choice.
Yeah, that is true. We saw that in the last game, actually, out of them. So they might move to that. They don't have... I don't think it's as beautiful as it was kind of on the Sky Temple map, but it's a route they could take.
Yeah, I think Murloc Geniuses needs to find a way to punish this triple melee composition of Naventic, though. You have Thrall, Zool, and Tyrael. Yeah, Tyrael's great at protecting that front line, but right now Murloc Geniuses doesn't have very much AoE to deal with that. We see Naventic has the Kael'thas, so that can't be picked against them, and I'm worried that Murloc Geniuses is just going to get steamrolled if they don't find a way to punish this just melee stack from Naventic.
It's not only the melee stack, but when we were talking about the first 2 rotations of pick bans, we saw the kind of getting a little bit of wave clear with the KT, really teamfight focused out of the first rotation on the side of Naventic. Murlocs picks only Falstad and then can go anywhere with the rest of their draft. They don't concentrate on dominating the map, which I thought was a very interesting choice for them, not dominating the map, rather than going you're going to pick teamfight, we'll teamfight into you, rather than going kind of PvE focused, and then going with the Zeratul on the back half of it there. This is unique, I guess. I'm surprised to see it on this map.
Saying we can play better than Astral Authority.
Well,
against Naventic.
Dunk brought this up yesterday. We were talking a lot. It's a counter to Tyrael to a certain extent, right? The Sanctification comes out, you void the Sanct. Sanct no longer exists. Your 5-man stack, guess what? It doesn't matter anymore. But it's not necessarily Zeratul's best map, right? It's very wave clear dependent. Your opponents have really tight areas to move. It's not big enough for him to get a lot of isolated picks.
I mean, that's one thing that you bring up that's interesting. It feels like Tyrael is one of the best warriors as an all-round that doesn't have many counters. He's not necessarily got a huge health pool, so Tychus isn't necessarily too much of a threat against him. What do you think about that, as Zeratul being one of the main focuses to try and deal with the Tyrael?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zeratul is good against Tyrael himself, but he can't 1v1 Thrall. He's not great against Zool. He's only okay against Kael'thas, so it's not even like he has targets on the enemy team to assassinate. There's no Vala, there's no Sylvanas, there's no one he can just pick off in a fight to start it. So he's going to have the most amazing VPs to make up for his otherwise not very good teamfight potential.
I agree, and I think because of the composition problems, so from the Zeratul, you brought up the squishies being a problem, I think this puts so much weight on the Falstad. His gusts have to be not only the initiator in a majority of the teamfights, but it has to be strong enough to bait a Sanctification. When the Sanctification comes out, you follow up with the VP, then they have kill potential in a teamfight. But if they are using the Gust in any other way, shape, or form, I feel like they do not have the tools to win a fight.
Well, I mean, this is the first time we've seen Falstad get through so far in the tournament, and obviously it's a huge game changer to be able to have Gust, to be able to dictate the pace of these games, these fights especially. Do you think it is enough, though, to give Murloc Geniuses the sway here? Because when I look at Naventic's draft, it's really, really strong.
I actually think the heroics for Naventic... the heroics from Murloc Geniuses are going to be a problem for them. They have D-Shield, they have Gust, they have VP. These are all really timing-specific heroics, and they're going to cause havoc unless their team is perfectly on point.
Okay.
There's going to be so much trouble getting Gusts, VPs, and D-Shields to line up timing and actually get value out of them.
Yeah, it's essentially... It's not that it's not possible, it's just that your window of opportunity is very small, and multiple people have to hit it. So that synergy really needs to exist between them, whereas you view Sanctification and you're like, well, this is a colossal heroic, right? It can single-handedly change, but when it's going to gain value, almost every time you throw it down, unless you're by yourself, nobody around, and you're in an open area, and you're about to die, like it's the only time Sanctification really just goes, well, that was unimpactful.
And this is a map where the early game really kind of does start to dictate the pace of the game as it goes along. It really feels like Naventic has firm grasp of that with their comp, right?
Yeah, the early game is amazing here. They're going to have Thrall for the solo, who's going to body anybody who tries to 1v1 him. And then they also have the 4-man KT, Zool, CC combo, Burst, also insta-wave clear.
That was exactly what I was talking about when we talked the first 2 waves, right? Naventic instantly moves into a team fight, and then they go, we're just going to fight you too. And then the back half of the draft, Naventic goes, so we're going to win lanes and we're going to be able to team fight? Like, it just seems so strange that they didn't move like, all right, congratulations, you get the KT, decent, you know, we can deal with that. But they picked constant aggression as a response to aggression.
All right, guys. Well, who really stands out for you here across Murloc, Geniuses, and Naventic? Who are going to be the playmakers? Are you looking out for Azul doing so well? It's being played by Fan at the moment.
I think for me, the playmaker has to be Cthulhu. He has to play out of his mind, and beautiful follow-up from Psalm. Those two together really need to be just insane playmakers this matchup.
Yeah, and Zuna's definitely going to need to lend Sanctifications as well to defend against that. If they counter Sanctification with the Void Prison, with the Gust, like you talked about very well, that's going to be very hard for Naventic to beat. So if Naventic can utilize Sanctification, guard their melees, they're going to crush team fights. It's
funny, Dread. I feel like Cthulhu is going to have to be the playmaker in a lot of these games. He certainly was in the previous series as well. For now, though, let's head over to the casters. It's the winners match here in Group A, and I'm sending you over to Jake and Jayhow.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we're going into game number 1 here between Murloc, Geniuses, and Naventic, and the stage has been set. This is kind of reminiscent of the very first game of today.
We looked at each other when we saw that Zeratul pick, and we're like, wait a minute, Zeratul went against Naventic in game number 1 on Tomb of the Spider Queen. It didn't work out so well, Jake.
No, it didn't. But, of course, as they were talking about there on the panel, Zeratul with that Void Prison does have the potential to shut down the Sanctification. We'll see if that can come through here in this series. Cough and Luck, though, I think this is the first time we've seen Falstad today. So Falstad making it through the ban phase. Pretty darn uncommon, very powerful hero in his entire kit. Not necessarily his best map in the world, but, of course, that Mighty Gust is phenomenal. But early on, we have this first little brawl happening in the center of the map, and even with the Bone Prison, Dwarf Toss going to be enough for him to back on away.
Well, when we look at Falstad against that heavy melee comp on the other side for Naventic, obviously he's going into that Q build with Gathering Storm at level 1. It's a matter of can he make those stacks. As Dread talked about, it's going to be up to Cough and Luck to be able to try and get those stacks, as we do see the early engagements between the rotations.
Yeah, a lot of damage there from that Kael'thas Cattle on the Greymane. Looking to try to stay in the fight, but needs to be wary of Fan on that Zul in the front. Zul just doing his very best to get the strong presence in the lane. Obviously, those skeletons are very good at just soaking up the shots of the towers. And early on here on this map, it's just, you know, critical about getting some good damage done and collecting as many gems as possible. Naventic, a little bit favored here.
A little bit. I'm actually a little bit surprised. I mean, obviously, Murloc Geniuses doesn't have a ton of wave clear, and they've got Cawthon down in the bottom 1v1 against Tomster. He's not going to be able to stack up that Q as early as he wants, as we see a little bit of the engagement, but being there on Tyrael, Zuna has no problem going in at any point to create havoc.
Alrighty, we'll just keeping our eyes on the talents. How do you think Backlash is going to work out? I mean, obviously Shade is a pretty darn common talent for Azul as a hero in general, but with Backlash, it's just kind of against the burst style of them. But Big Impact, very low in the back, will be able to escape. We do see Psalm stepping pretty far forward. Does he have the Blink available? No, not quite, so we will end up losing his life here. And you see Fan doing critical damage with that Spectral Sight.
The Bone Prison can disrupt so much. As you can see, they're now going to go in on Cattle. The Gravity Labs misses because he was able to hop into that Organ form at the last moment to avoid that. So the back and forth, Naventic just is so strong early on. And you can see they've already got the slight experience advantage, and they seem to be winning the rotations right now.
Yeah, and actually Backlash did come into play there, so just so far so good with that talent choice. But right now, just that one pickup here on the side, really what we want to keep our eyes on is that count for the gem. So 30 picked up so far on the side of Naventic. Nobody has tried to turn in whatsoever. And the other story is how well can each team goaltend? Well, it's pretty even with the Zeratul being able to go in and throw the Singularity Spikes forward, but we have this fight in the mid. A lot of damage going into Zuna now. Druid Might into the backside with the Flame Strike connecting on 3 targets. Gravity Labs picking up Cattle, but the lunge there from Kenma picking up a nice kill. June will be able to bear the retreat on Uther, throwing out a single kill. Needs to be careful with that Living Bomb on Psalm, who does manage to spread nicely.
They weren't afraid to engage there. The problem is the minute they tried to turn on Zuna, the Living Bomb was on top of Greymane already, and he spread it right back into his team. So, you know, they tried to get the kill. It didn't work out for them, and that's 2 picks now. The experience, again, starting to lend into the of Naventic. But we're not seeing the Gathering Power build that we saw from Gladius earlier. It's going to be Vorpal Blade, so it's going to be up to Zeratul to make the plays, and again, this is one of the weirder maps for Zeratul to work around. I'm not sure how he fits here, and I'm really curious to see what he's going to be able to pull off.
Yeah, it gives him a lot of options for the jukes, potentially on the Gravity Labs that might be thrown his way. Maybe that's his primary concern, but obviously having those tricks at your disposal is really nice. Beyond that, everything is pretty darn standard here for this. We do see Right now, just the control of the coffers in favor of Naventic, who are just 1 gem away from having a turn-in.
And we see the early aggression from Naventic. It's allowing them to be able to rotate and to be able to get this early turn in. They've been able to force Murloc Geniuses off. And you can see they're trying to go in and get any kill that they can, but Tomster playing there on Thrall, he's going to be safe, and that's going to allow the turn in up here in the top, Jake.
You know, how do you feel about the Thrall pick in general? Thrall's a hero that's kind of fallen out of the meta in a lot of regards. He's always been good here on Tomb of the Spider Queen, but to pick him right out of the gates in the draft, do you think it's going to pay off for them?
So far, it seems to be. I mean, just the fact that he's able to man that bottom lane by himself, as we see the stun and the gravity labs just misses there on Cattle, who's being forced back. But I wonder, are they going to get the turn in that they need to get turned in?
Yeah, only 4 away on the side of Murlocs. And of course, 9 have been turned in for Naventic, just doing their best to turn in. But Psalm is waiting in the shadows on that Zeratul. A good rotation down from Fury. They're finding Big E, but they do have the coverage from everyone else.
The thing that I like about Naventic is if you look at Tyrael, the increased movement on Smite there, it's something that we see a lot out of them, as the Gravity Labs is going to be able to catch Zeratul. Saw him in a lot of trouble.
Wow,
he
down to
had
12
like 7
HP.
health left.
The Gravity Labs will now find Muradin. With the Flame Strike going down, that will be Muradin falling. So the first kill of this fight here, the nice Bone Prison going down. Greymane has a living bottom flight, no chance of him surviving. So a great fight for Naventic. They managed to not kill Zeratul, but force him back to base, pick up a double kill. Level 7 has been picked up, and now they can easily get themselves that turn in.
I mean, this is huge right now. Naventic is straight taking control of this game very early on. It doesn't look like much, but they have a full level advantage. They're already at 7. They've got their gems. They've gotten 4 major kills that have allowed them to now they get the turn in. It's the first wave of web weavers that are going to be pushing now, Jake.
I mean, this is momentum. What it's all about, having that level advantage, getting those, if they get a few structures down, even just getting the towers with the web weavers is going to put them so very close to level 10. But Murlocs, they know if they can take a fight quickly, if they can nullify a lot of these web weavers, they can turn things in their favor. So they're actually sitting in the middle lane, doing their best to just kind of mount a defense, make sure this web weaver doesn't get too much value done. And they do have that global presence of Coffin. So it's one big advantage they do have to their side.
The one thing I've seen out of Naventic so far early on is they're allowing Greymane through, and then they're turning around and they're picking Zul to get that lockdown. Zul fits well on this map, and the minute anybody goes in, whether it's Zeratul, whether it's Greymane, they're instantly locking it down and putting so much pressure. Level 7 finally here for Murloc Geniuses. They finally have that cleanse, going to allow them a little bit more flexibility going into these fights.
Yeah, level 7 is nice. Psalm has just been lurking in the shadows, trying to find someone out of position. He's actually just behind. Kenma has eyes on him. You see the way he's moving. He's definitely looking towards Psalm with that lightning shield, but does end up losing him. Psalm will be rotating back to the left side. The final web weaver will be cleaned up here, and the defense overall has been solid, but there's still that full level advantage on the side of Naventic. We're just going to look to safely soak to level 10, and that nice attempt here from Cattle and Coffin not quite going to pay off.
They are trying so hard to get one pick, and we look at the gem count. They have 47 does Murloc Geniuses. They've lost so many between those 4 kills, not able to pick it back up. So, and on the other side for Naventic, they have 44, and they're closing in on 10. If they're not careful, if Murloc Geniuses isn't careful, Naventic might be able to get the second turn in and start to snowball this very early.
And you notice we just saw a Tomster in the bottom lane versus Falstad. He didn't quite get the stun there on the Falstad player, but he zoned him away from all the gems. So Coffin not able to pick up the 3 gems. Those small little plays like that do add up quickly.
They do. Level 10, you're talking about adding up quickly. Level 10 is almost here. 4 kills, it's all it's taken. We have seen a little bit different build from Greymane, where he's going the cocktail build once again. We saw that a little bit earlier. It's something that different teams are prioritizing a little bit differently, especially in the NA region, but level 10 has now been picked up.
Alrighty, well, you know, with level 10 in this tournament already, we've seen Fan land some monstrous Poison Nova, so keep your eyes on that in these fights, especially with the spread damage of the Living Bomb. They just have crazy pressure they can put on, and against the lone support of Uther, that can add up very quickly. They are controlling that coffer turn in 18 already and 41 in the bank, and with level 10 not quite here, it makes it dicey for Murlocs to even look for a fight.
Tomster just sitting down here. We talked about goaltending and be able to deny the turn-ins. We see 63 gems for Murloc. Fury getting dove upon, but they're rotating down onto Cattle, onto Greymane here. He could be in trouble, Jake.
Good cleanse comes through. Cattle will be able to back away with that. We do see Zeratul going into the backside, applying some nice damage on Big E, and that's going to force Naventic back a little bit. Level 10 still hasn't quite been attained here, but Tomster getting those 12 in. 5 more will be needed on the side of Naventic for their turn-in. 68 in the pocket of Murlocs. They're finally looking to dump some of those off in the top. Coffin flying up, trying to make this play happen.
The minute they hit 10, they now realize they can engage. I'm a little bit curious why Naventic wasn't trying to be a little bit more aggressive to try and get that second turn, and they kept getting the denials, did Murloc Geniuses. And now Tomster being picked on by Psalm. Remember, he might have to use Sundering there to get away, and he does. Baits out the heroic. That's huge.
That is a big deal. So suddenly, this is a situation far in favor of Murloc Geniuses. They have all of their heroics at the ready. Divine Shield used to engage there with the Greymane going deep onto Big Impact. We do see that Sanctification keeping him alive, and oh my goodness, everything. Biggie with 50 HP. Fury's looking for him in the back. The shields come through, the Ancestral to top him off. Naventic has such good coverage in this fight.
The isolation by that Void Prism, but with the Dazzler continuing to come in as we see Murden trying to get locked down. The Gravity Lapse just missing, but this is Naventic's time to really push in. Man, I am so surprised that Big E managed to survive there.
That has got to be so disheartening to have someone down to the point where their hitbox, the life is just gone. It's just black depth, and you know, they managed to survive with that very last hit point remaining. But full level lead, a second summon of the Web Weavers. I don't think Murloc has turned in a single gem yet, Jay Howe.
It's been tough for them. I mean, they every time things start to look good, all of a sudden a pick happens. They try and be aggressive, and their aggression is being used against them, and that's something that's huge. As we see Fan, he's got the cleanse there. He's trying to get out. Remember, he's got the damage, but that is way too much for him to deal with as they finally get their first pick, does Murloc.
Yeah, really, really nice gust there from Coffin just to make sure there was no support available whatsoever. Kettle with a beautiful launch on forward, getting away from that Gravity Lapse, but we do see the Sundering coming out, not quite connecting with Fury, who had that cleanse on him. And we do see Cattle down to 140 HP himself, so close calls on this time on the side of Murloc Geniuses, who will be the ones surviving.
Well, that was their opportunity to fight. Level 13 should be coming in here the minute this fort goes down, and there it is. And Naventic starting to put the pressure on. Murloc Genius is the fact that they've been able to get a pick now to be able to put themselves back in. We see Tomster under a little bit of assault. There's Vorpal coming in from Psalm, just keeping the pressure on. I feel like Murloc is just waiting for one opportunity. I feel like it's still well within their grasp.
You know, this whole single tank with Tyrael, where Tyrael is kind of support, has been working very well for Naventic so far today. We've seen just so many plays where that shield comes through at the last moment from Zuna to keep a teammate alive, and he's got that coverage in the front. He's just keeping everyone body blocked in very nicely, forcing out a Divine Shield here in this moment. And actually, if Fury had stepped over that boundary, that would have been lights out for him.
This is the most curious thing. We saw the recent change to Murden. He used to be able to avoid those bone prisons very easily, but the changes bait out stuff now like that Divine Shield. This is a dramatic change with Murden's kit, and you can see it's coming into play right there.
Yeah, no more Unstoppable makes it just though that Dwarf Toss is more of an engage than a safe retreat, but Psalm is looking to goaltend this top part of the map. 25 gems in his pocket. He would love to dump some of them out. Again, they have still not dropped off a single gem in this game, so once you start to get up to that, 82 and plus where they are right now, it's not only just that you want to turn them in to get the value of the objective, but it's so risky because you don't want to, dying is that much more detrimental to your team.
It's just one of the things that we're at a point now where teams are basically going to go and try, as we do have a little bit of a pause here, but teams are actually trying to get a little bit of map control on it. Jake, we are going to have a little bit of pause here while we find out. But, Naventic, again, we've talked about it. They've been able to keep the pressure up, and we talked about it, or the guys talked about in the draft, the amount of wave clear that they're able to have with their rotations have allowed them to get this lead and to really to keep track of things.
It's definitely been going pretty well for Naventic, though. I mean, they're controlling the fight. Murloc Geniuses, what do you think they have to do to turn things around?
They're so dependent right now on Zeratul. Just him trying to get any bit of damage in, trying to get a pick in any sort of way, and it does look like we are back in the game now. But it seems like that's all that they're waiting for. Right now, they're going to try and soak up to level 13, then they're going to look to re-engage. But the good thing is they're not terribly far down. They're a level and a half down, but if level 16 is reached by Naventic, again, that's going to keep them at a disadvantage. So look for Murloc to try and be a little bit aggressive now that they've hit 13 and continue to try and get a turn in or a pick or something. They finally got 28 gems turned in finally, Jake.
All right, that's a start. That's a start. Psalm was scouting around the top part of the map, so he's not quite here for this fight. Mighty Guts had to be used as a result, and Naventic will be scooping up those bruisers. So a nice grab for them here on the offensive side of Murloc Genius, really just keeping the pressure on at all times. And even with an even talent footing, it doesn't look like Murlocs can regain any kind of control on the map.
It doesn't. We see a team like Naventic, they're not afraid to go in and invade, especially when you have that hero like tier, and you can see the pressure put in on the double Gravity Lapse is doing so much damage. Cattle going in the back, and now he's going to get grabbed, but we do see the cleanse coming out, Jake.
The cleanse came out, and Psalm blinked in, was looking for the VP, didn't actually commit to it, so he has to wait on that blink cooldown, but unfortunately that timing has been lost. Naventic is able to back on away from here. Phoenix was spent there on their side, and just waiting for that Mighty Guts to come up in 10 seconds. If he managed to land that monstrous VP, this game easily could have gone back into the hands of Murlocs.
We see Murloc trying to zone out as best that they can. Psalm putting the pressure on, just trying to allow his team to turn in. There's the Bone Prison once again, and the root just missing from Tomster.
They got to be careful. Sundering in these clumped up areas can get quite disastrous. Fury is very far forward, doing his best to retreat, does spend that Dwarf Toss to get away. Fan coming from the side. The Sundering does go in, hitting 2 targets. June is insanely low. The VP coming through, but the Poison Nova is just doing so much damage. Everyone on the side of Murlocs is in full-on retreat. Zuna going to look to go in there with the Eldruins. Might finish off whoever he can. June in the back, being chased by Fen, going forward with that smite, giving him that movement speed, and the Bone Prison does connect, but can he get the big damage? Yeah, he picks up the kill. One in the back. Uther goes down as well, and Murloc Geniuses will have those staggered deaths.
The isolation that Void Prison creates also allows the isolation against you, and you can see Naventic turn that around. They didn't chase one target. They realized, as you said, that Poison Nova did so much damage that allowed them to chase with 2 different heroes, get the extra 2 kills. Another turn in, Jake. They've hit 16. They're putting a lot of pressure on right now.
So Rhaegar's back in action, just now respawning. We did see the first turn in ever, as you mentioned, on the side of Murloc Geniuses, so that's a nice small victory for them, but unfortunately they're not necessarily all alive to actually capitalize on these Web Weavers. Before they can even afford to push out on the map, they'll be cleaned up. Level 16 Seer for an Naventic, and they're picking up some interesting talents.
Some interesting talents for sure. We're not seeing the typical holy ground that we see from Tyrael. It's not necessarily the control that you would see from an area that you would normally get. Instead, we're seeing blood for blood. That allows for a little bit more damage and more survivability for Tyrael. So a little bit different build coming out here from Zuna. I think it's probably going to surprise a few people the minute they get hit with that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was playing with the Holy Ground earlier today just for the level of control it gives you, but he's actually looking just for the full-on Bruiser life. He knows that Muradin has been overcommitting so many times, and once you can just absorb like a big portion of his hit points with that and heal yourself in the process, it's going to make it very difficult for Muradin to stay in the fights at all. So Fury's got to be very wary of that, noticing that's been picked up.
I'm curious at this as well, because we see Flowing Wounds coming out from Zul, and I'm curious what he's going to be picking up at level 20, whether it's going to be that healing reduction or whether we're going to be something slightly different. So a little bit different strategy coming out from Naventic, and they're continuing to keep the pressure on, Jake. They haven't been able to get a keep, but they have the 2-level lead, level 16, getting really close for Murloc Geniuses, but they're trying to get another turn in.
Yeah, I mean, Fan is just giving so much coverage with that Bone Prison alone. Although we did see about 30 gems dropped off on the side of Murlocs right before that turn in here for Naventic, this is starting to become problematic. We're getting later into the game. The Web Weavers have been summoned, what, 3-4 times now on the side of Naventic? And they still have that level 16 advantage for a short while.
The one thing that actually went well for Murloc Geniuses in the last minute or so is that they were able to clear up the lanes a little bit. Those Web Weavers only spawn up to as far as where your minions are. They were able to clear it up at least a third of the way, almost halfway up the map. So they're going to have a little bit of time to defend, but we see Naventic, they've got their eye on a keep right now.
Yeah, the other thing though is the Web Weavers aren't necessarily staggered, so it does make it a little bit more tricky. They have to kind of pick and choose what to defend. Mid lane has more or less been cleaned up, but Naventic knocking on the door of the top lane, and the bottom is a little bit further back. So that one, not an immediate threat, but Naventic is going to guard this as long as humanly possible. 16 still not here from Murlocs. They need that lockdown in if they want to be able to take a safe fight. Big VP going out into the backside, though. Saw him being focused down nicely. Can they keep him alive? The Sanctification and the Poison Nova going down. Poison Nova only connecting on 2 targets. The Sundering trying to lock down Fury. The combo with the grab dust, but the Divine Shield and Mighty Gust to keep him alive. The keep has gone down. Naventic are going to be happy with that and just leave this fight.
I mean, they got exactly what they came for. It took a little bit of effort. It took a few heroics, but they got it. And the perfect play there by Zuna to have that Sanctification. The minute that Void Prison was coming off and the minute that the Poison Nova was out, they knew exactly they had control over that point. Now they're looking for a boss because they realized, as you said, those Web Weavers weren't staggered, but the order in which they killed them forced Murloc Geniuses to rotate to the bottom, and that's a long distance for them to make up.
Yeah, it's actually just, you know, best case scenario here on the side of Naventic. Even though 16 is here, they're doing their best to charge the point. Fury is looking on in, but this is going to be very hard. The boss has fallen down. We do see a lot of those rogues still on cooldown. A beautiful Ancestor coming in here, but Cattle in the back does have to retreat on that Greymane. The boss still being contested, but the deaths are looking in favor of Naventic here, 1 for 1, but June is so very low. How is he standing? He's on the point all by himself with just 100 hit points, and Coffin just going to town, picking up the kills. They steal the boss, and they are back in this game.
They are the barrel roll just misses over the wall. He's forced to use the Mighty Gust. He is going to be able to fly out of there, and Cattle just gets out. Jake, there were no heroics on the board, so they were completely dependent on playing their heroes and playing their abilities, and that seemed to favor the fight in terms of Naventic with that chain bomb that was coming in from that living bomb. But the minute Ghost Uther was there, he kept the team alive and allowed them to steal that boss. That's a huge moment for them.
I mean, everything about June's play in that fight was flawless. Like, you got on the point at the last moment, just enough to turn that boss in their favor, landed the critical stun needed, and of course, like you said, even when you kill him, that Ghost form is even more obnoxious, because guess what? I don't need mana anymore. This is great. Heals for everyone. So yeah, right now, Murloc Genius is turning it around, trying to crawl themselves back into this game. They have a lot of ground to cover. The turn-in is great. They have 3/4 to power through. That's a lot of experience at their disposal to pick up and catch up. But level 20 will be here for Naventic regardless.
I love the rotation to clear up the lanes to try and get as much value as they can. They do have the Web Weavers. It is 18 minutes in the game, but you have to look at it's almost level 20 for Naventic, so they can't be as aggressive as they want, because that 20 should be picked up momentarily. So you can see that they're trying to get as much value as they can by spreading those lanes.
Alrighty, well, we'll keep our eyes on those level 20 talents as they will be populating very soon, but it's all about getting down some forts quickly. So Murloc's putting their presence in the mid lane. Coffin in the bottom with that false head, having that safety, the presence with this Web Weaver is getting so much done in the bottom. And he's known for this split push style with Zagara, but making it work with this false head and whoever else is at his disposal for that game has been working out pretty nicely, or helping them crawl back in, actually narrowing the gap down to less than a level lead.
I mean, that was a huge play for them. That boss steal completely turned this game around for them to be very much so back in it. You can see Psalm trying to clear out the top. Jake, you called it right before. That's a lot of experience that was on the board, and they just took advantage of it, took all 3 forts down, and it's getting close, but level 20 is now picked up for Naventic.
Yeah, and this is going to give them that big power spike that they want. I mean, Mortal Wounds alone, you just throw that in the mix, and it's going to make it really hard for Uther to keep everyone alive. Those scythes are going to be coming out left and right. They've got that Storm Shield, and the Living Bombs are also become quite problematic if you clump up.
The infinite spread could be real. And now this is Murloc Geniuses. We look at the gems for Naventic. They have 86. They have enough for a turn-in, but we see that Murloc Geniuses recognize we can't allow the turn-in. At least they're trying to body them off. Psalm getting vision. I'm not sure if that Murloc Genius is going to be able to defend, but they're going to try.
You know, so far so good. The Blink's on cooldown for a few more seconds, and that's going to allow Fan to at least get his 13 in here. That's going to put them just 15 away from another turn-in, and Zuna's the one that has the ticket. So this will be Naventic once again grabbing themselves the power of the Web Weavers. They still maintain that fort in the middle lane. As you mentioned, the staggered Web Weavers, this time it's actually going to be quite problematic in the top, but there are catapults to help them push forward. So in the end, I think this is almost like worst case scenario for Murlocs, because well, they'll have 20, I guess. That's okay.
Yeah, this is Tomb of the Spider Queen. I mean, if you can defend well, we talked about the stagger, the top lane, that Web Weaver's going to get 0 value. So it's up to Naventic to make something happen. You talked about the catapults. That's going to be able to clear. The bottom wave somewhat pushed out, but this middle one is the biggest threat. The camp already cleared up. Level 20 now picked up. Murloc Geniuses should be able to defend here as long as they play safe.
Alrighty, well, level 20 has just been picked up here. Epic Mount, actually, I believe, was picked up there from False Head, so this can give him a bit more reach. A nice BP on 2 targets in the back. They're diving in the Poison Nova, trying to force everyone away, not getting a lot of value. The Storm Shield was used very early, and a big gust from behind the Coffin, but the turnaround with the Sundering on 2. An early pick on the side of Naventic, looking to keep this push going. And remember, those Web Weavers are still standing strong in the mid lane. The keep will go down. The top Web Weaver still sitting at about 40% hit points, and this is looking rough here for Murlocs.
I'm really surprised that they tried to be aggressive as they could. I really wish they would have just stayed back, defended. Instead of losing one keep, they're now going to lose a second one, and that threat is still real. This Web Weaver still about 50%. Could Naventic look to end here, Jake? They're posturing right now.
They're posturing for it, but I don't know how hard they're going to dive. They're looking, actually, if they get this kill, it's going to be very dicey. The top lane still has the Web Weavers and the catapults, which have been marching in and piling up behind that Coffin, completely secluded. Kenma, does he commit to the chase here? It seems like a bit much, but yes, he will do that. But the rest of the team is going for the core. The shields have fallen only down to 50% hit points. Naventic should be closing it out here.
Sanctification is going to help them secure the core there. They knew they were safe. They were able to stay on it, and they were able to posture up. You have to wonder if that questionable Mighty Gust to force the re-engage was a good call there. I feel like they could have played it safe, defended, and to be able to at least sacrifice maybe that keep at the most. Instead, they sacrificed the entire game with that one play.
It's just one of those plays where you think you can turn it all around and get yourself a victory, and unfortunately, it didn't work out for him there. So very well played there by Naventic. 3-0 in games so far today. I just can't wait to hear what our panel has to say.
I can't wait to hear what these guys have to say as well. Nobody really cares about what I have to say. All right, boys. So Naventic looking pretty good there overall. There was a blip in the machine there with that boss going down, but no holy ground, no real easy way to deny that kind of play coming out. So a little bit of hope there for Murloc Geniuses.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the early game, it was just so one-sided. Naventic was absolutely steamrolling. They had full control of the lanes. They were doing everything they wanted. They were crushing the game until that boss throw. They just... Dread, so greedy.
Yeah, just without their boss control, like you said, no holy ground, and then they didn't have the sanctification as well, which is what I think they were kind of banking on. Then Big E being the first person to die in that team fight, that was really good focus from Murlocs. Without him being able to have that sustained DPS and kill potential, that was really, I feel like, why they pulled ahead in that. But again, it's like, okay, you got the boss, but like really, how in the scheme of things, like how's that looking? You're already keep down. You only have a counter turn, and after that point, they gained little to no value. They lost the race to 20. It feels like that was the only moment of hope, and it wasn't really that big.
The game had to go on again, and they had to win another boss. But of course, let's take a look at some of the highlights from that game to start things off so far, with Naventic taking that 1-0 lead here. Where do we start things off? All right, the 10 versus 11 fight, and already, I mean, even up to the top, you can see Sanctification getting big value.
Yeah, you actually saw an auto attack get canceled that would have killed Biggie, and it just barely doesn't happen. Then he's like, oh, there's a sync right here. I'll walk back into it. Huge value there. And then this time, VP goes out, and the Poison Nova does so much work here that they manage to chase down and clean up this fight. And this is really where Naventic goes from a little bit ahead to way ahead.
I feel like, too, again, like you saw in that team fight opening with the Void, that was something we were talking about, whether or not the Void was going to be a counter to the Sanctification or like the engage, and we almost never saw it. But here, this is the team fight that really kind of turned everything. Big E got a lot of pressure, still hit a huge Ancestral, but it didn't matter. That saw him just constantly staying onto him, and then the June right there, dude, the MVP staying on that point and not dying. That was a really great play from him.
The healing static on Murden there actually was enormous. He got back so much health on that big clump. That was just devastating.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. That's a lot of Murlocs. I didn't even realize. But of course, maybe we won't be seeing any Murky anytime soon. Although, so let's talk about the next map that's coming up. It's going to be Towers of Doom here as we roll on forward here. Naventic have already had a strong game on Towers of Doom. Likewise, so have Murloc Geniuses. But realistically, Murloc Geniuses were going up against a very specific thing in the Illidan and also drafting around that. It seemed like Naventic had a bit more of the stable power. They started things off in their Towers draft with a Tassadar first pick. Is that something that we're likely to see again moving forward?
I mean, the Tassadar first pick seemed weird at first, but the way it just played into their whole strategy and the map itself, it seems to just allow them to play really standard, plus the Brightwing synergy with Tassadar was really good there. They made a lot of use out of the global, and I would like to see them do it again. It looked really strong, and I don't think Murloc could just beat it.
Yeah, it's a very, I feel like almost like Tempo Storm-esque, right? Like where you have like that melee, and then you just had the Brightwing moving in, and on Towers of Doom, it's really valuable to have the global. I don't like, much like in game number 1, I don't think it's going to be as easy for Murlocs to kind of pull out that counter strategy like we saw with Denial. And it showed in the first one. I do hope to see a drastic change, like a notable difference between the 3 drafts we've seen on the side of Murlocs, because I don't think they can just do what they do and get away with it against Naventic.
Yeah, I mean, Denial's drafts definitely looked like they had a weakness, and Murlocs exploited it. The Illidan got exploited by Lili. Yeah. The Zagara exploited the double tank with low wave clear. Right. Naventic is drafting very standard and stable and not leaving those holes in their drafts. So Murloc is going to have to go way out of the boundaries to find a way to beat Naventic here, because we just saw in that last game, they can't really outfight them in a 5v5. I mean, they had the fluke on boss, but it looked Naventic favored.
So is it not a case that Murloc Geniuses can't just go stable and standard themselves? Do you think that they have to bring something a little bit more wacky, a little bit more special to the table against Naventic? What do you think?
They can. They could. I would hope to see that they don't. We, like you said, Denial had holes. They were abused. Naventic's going very standard. Very few holes in their drafts. So I would like to see Murlocs, rather than worrying about getting the skirmish, understand the dynamic like last game. They had very strong team fighting, and then they went blow for blow in the team fight, worrying about like map control instead. Something a little bit different and a little bit more breathing room in their play.
Well, this is familiar. The same bans and picks as Naventic versus Astral Authority in all slots so far, Dunk.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Naventic feeling really comfortable with that Tassadar first pick that we had mentioned. The Falstad Interior getting banned out again here on this big map, of course, really powerful. Murloc with the Greymane, how are they going to take advantage of this? We saw Astral also pick up the Greymane, and they couldn't make anything happen against Naventic. So Murloc has to make sure not to fall into that same trap where your Greymane just can't get enough value.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to be a lot of the same draft for the side of Naventic. I do like that Rhaegar was picked up over the Uther. I was talking a bit about it during that last match. I really like to see him, without a doubt, the highest priority support. A lot of people, I think, underestimate the value that he brings when it comes to his wave clear just by throwing a W onto somebody. But now Naventic, I expect them to move very much into a babying a certain type of melee. Who it's going to be, I'm going to say it's going to be a Sonya again.
But the Super Sonya standard.
The Super, yeah, exactly. I think it's a really safe route. They could go with a Thrall, but it's a little less consistent of an approach, and I think Kerrigan as well. So I think that will be it will be a Sonya.
Well, from here in their previous game, they went Li Ming and Sonya, so well, they will be Li Ming, and will they round things out in a similar way going up against them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't here. They've got exactly what they want. I mean, this worked perfectly in the set before, and they just beat Murloc Geniuses. They're not feeling any pressure right now. This is total comfort mode for them. They're like, look, this is our Towers draft. It crushed the first time we played it, and you guys are drafting the same way into us. We'll just run it back. So I totally expect to see the same draft come out here. The Tassadar Li Ming, so good at interrupting, so good at that, controlling the flow of the team fight. You can always kite away, and Greymane just has a hard time dealing with that if he can't get the front-loaded kills.
Yeah, that is a really good point, unless he has like just some insane flank, which would be such risky positioning to be able to get away with. He's going to struggle in these type of games. And then Li Ming, Tass, insane poke, insane kill potential, delay. Like, they have a lot when it comes to complementing the map. And I feel like that is the story when we look at this series specifically with Naventic versus Murloc. It's like last game, it was just Naventic's far more worried about the map, and it feels like Murloc's is worried about like a generic what they think is strong. And I think that is why we see those holes. Like, they had a strong comp, but it couldn't deal with the map last game, and I feel like that's going to be the case here too.
Yeah, it definitely looked like the Zeratul, like you were talking about, looked a little out of place in the last game, and it definitely cost them in their early game control of the map. Now, Naventic is locking in that ETC. I love the ETC Li Ming. The mosh pit, the AoE damage, the resets, it just feels like it goes so well together. And ETC Tassadar is great because I feel like ETC sometimes gets traded on a little too hard on the front lines. He's not the tankiest, he's just got huge utility, so you add the Tassadar on and he just won't be able to get harassed out. So I think it makes him a lot scarier since he can just constantly posture for that deadly mosh.
Yeah, and then Sonya is going to be the ban for Murlocs, and now Naventic looking to get out their ban. Trying to think what their biggest fear at this time would be. They have a very generic composition, so I think, let's think. We have Rhaegar, Greymane. I don't honestly know what they want to be doing. It could be a deny of JoJo, like for instance, is a common thing that we see in the Korean scene when you have the ETC going to be picked up, but it's not necessarily her best map.
Joanna's not too bad a warrior for actually like interrupting the shrines,
the interrupt value. It's just when it's on a map where she doesn't gain wave clear value as well.
Right.
I don't know if I put her as high as some of the other options. Tracer instead.
Yeah, the Tracer. So, on the other hand, I think Naventic might have been worried about a cheese here of some sort. That's why they want to go with the Tracer ban. It's not a standard hero. You don't see it that often. So, they must have sniffed something out that Murloc Geniuses was doing in practice and just not something they want to deal with, which is a little odd because historically we've seen Tracer used with Tassadar. That's how MVP Black ran it, that's how it was run in North America, and it was seen to great success. But this time Naventic has the Tassadar and opted to ban out the Tracer, which is a little surprising. I'm wondering if that's a reaction to the changes in the hero pool since we last saw Tracer. Maybe the Medivh Tracer is something that they were worried about, so they banned out the Tracer. I'm not sure what else would synergize with it so well that they felt they needed to ban it.
You brought out the Medivh there. Is that something that Murloc Geniuses could do in this draft? What do you think, Dread?
I mean, I think Medivh always has a spot, but it has to be well thought out. And not only that, insanely well executed. The Zagara pickup here from Murlocs, I really do enjoy that from them. I personally think she's one of the stronger heroes in the game currently. You can run her Ma, you can run her with Nidus, it doesn't matter. Nidus is going to be complemented towards the map, so I wouldn't be surprised to get that. But then also, you were talking about the trade into ETC with the Tassadar. She is very good at providing damage onto that front line, dealing with the large amount of harassment onto that. She is very good at those trades, which is only going to complement Greymane. We said he's going to struggle with the front line, but Zagara is going to complement that to where now it's not so much Greymane has to flank the back line, it's going to be watch Zagara enable everything, and then Greymane's going to be going in. And then they go with the Illidan here. Risky.
That was totally unexpected.
And also, just to note, the second ban from Naventic was actually Abathur, not the Tracer.
Oh,
so.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense.
That makes way more sense. I mean, the Greyman Abathur is a deadly, deadly, deadly combination that we've seen over and over. So banning that makes total sense. The Illidan pick, though, I mean, we've said this earlier. Illidan into ETC is a little bit rough. He can't interrupt the mosh pit, and he pretty much always has to be in melee range of ETC, so it's difficult for him. Brightwing Zeratul. I love that, actually. I think Brightwing is amazing against the Illidan, especially now that we're seeing her move back towards Emerald Wind because of those healing increases that she's seen. Plus Zeratul. It's going to be so hard for Murloc Geniuses to support their Illidan when they're getting split by Emerald Wind, locked out by Void Prison.
I'm going to be that guy. I want to see Hunt. I'll be honest. I would rather see Hunt than Metamorphosis.
The European in me was thinking the same.
And then they lock in the Johanna. It's just the global potential that it provides on this map. There's a reasonable amount of targets to try and get the focus in. It needs to be done very well thought out and executed properly with rotations from the entire team because it can easily get split up here. But I don't think if they go blow for blow with the standard Illidan, like watch me smash into your face, like they have so many tools to deal with it. And I don't think they have enough outside of just the Illidan to justify that pick. I think they can get away with that pseudo-global style play.
Yeah, I actually love it as a counter to Brightwing too, because the Hunt is one of the few ways to interrupt Brightwing on that team when she's trying to phase shift. So let's hear Zagara split pushing, 1v1ing Brightwing, put some pressure on, Illidan comes in, Brightwing can't phase shift out. She's going to get wrecked when that Illidan drops. So I think Hunt could actually be really valuable here.
It's just got to be. They need to have practiced with it. I obviously don't know if this team specifically has, and it's a unique playstyle. It can definitely be executed well. I think MVP Black's a team that's done it in the past. Even at the summer, I want to say they ran Hunt in certain situations.
On towers too.
So I would like to see a Hunt style play. I just don't think traditional meta is going to do it.
I mean, it sort of answers our question of at the beginning, what were they going to do? Were they going to play Super Standard or were they going to bring out something a little bit more special? And even if it is Metamorphosis, it's still a little bit special in this composition because it's not the normal place an Illidan would fit. But if it's Hunt, oh boy, if it's Hunt, that will be some fun times. So I'm hoping for that one to see if it's going to be able to deal with the Brightwing on the other side. And even if you do go Metamorphosis, or if you're against the Brightwing, just polymorphs you and then you die. So you don't want that to happen, I would suppose.
Yeah, and then also you have just ETC is a constant threat that you have to be worried about. Like, there's a lot of tools that I would be afraid of if I was the Illidan in this matchup.
And not even many ways to interrupt the ETC. What you would have more, if more is going to be the choice, of course, on Zagara, and then not much else, really. So.
Well, I actually like that they have the Zagara to go with the Zeratul here in this game. It's difficult. We've seen Zeratul pick twice today already, where the team just felt like they didn't have control of the map with their Zeratul, and that's hard to play Zeratul in that situation. When you're getting pushed into your walls and stuff, you don't just run around free. That cloak doesn't get any value. The enemy knows where you are. You're defending a wave. This time, they actually have a Zagara, so if you can kind of put some pressure on the map, then your Zeratul can roam freely and actually cause havoc.
I almost would rather see Maw in the situation. Just as if we see the Hunt, I would rather see the Maw to make sure that they have the tools for the team fighting situation. Yeah. If they go into that double global, it suffers when it comes to their team fights. If they don't get a instant pick by abusing those globals, they fall really far behind. But I think Murloc, they have a comp that I actually think can do it this game. I'm way more confident in this draft comparative to the first game. But I'm not confident enough to say, like, oh, I think they've got it this game. They have to play very, very well and creatively, really, to get away with it.
It's clear from the couple of games we've seen with Naventic, they're coming into strong to this tournament. Of course, can Murloc Geniuses do it with this composition? Who is going to be the playmaker going into this one? What do you think?
I think going into this game, Dread had mentioned the Hunt. I don't want to take his choice of Caterpillar on Illidan. I mean, Fan on Zeratul, is he going to be able to get the pickoffs to stop this momentum? That's what I'm really worried about. So if Fan executes the Zeratul well and doesn't mess with his own team's mosh pits like we saw a couple in the last time Zeratul got played, those mosh pits and those Void Prisons weren't lined up very well all the time. If Naventic can use it better, they can just crush the team fights and not have to worry about the Zagara stuff.
Well, let's see. They're one of the scariest teams here in the North American Regional. As we now head over to the caster team for game number 2 here. Who's moving on to the semifinal? Let's find out with Jake and Jayhow.
Alrighty, thanks so much, guys. We are going into game 2. Naventic currently up 1-0, and Jayhow, Illidan, a hero that isn't seeing a whole lot of success in this meta. Do you believe?
I'm not as big as a believer because Brightwing is one of his biggest counters, and all the reasons the guys were just talking about, I think the Hunt is pretty much the choice you would have to go with right now. Brightwing being on that backside, ETC being there. There's so much that could isolate Illidan, especially when you talk about that Void Prison. It's risky. I'll put it that way.
Alrighty, well, we'll have to see if it does pan out. I'm actually just really pumped to see the change of Brightwing in the current, the current meta. We're seeing a lot of Emerald Wind. We already saw it once today. And, it's going to be fun to see that all unfold. But just coming out of the gates, we do have those early talents. Note, we are going to be watching Coffin Luck on that Zagara be a menace throughout the game. He's very well known for that hero, especially since the changes to Zagara. He looks absolutely just so scary on it.
Yeah, and you talk about that in particular, and this is Towers of Doom where the altars, you channel those, you get good value, and right away we see Corpse Feeders picked up at level 1. You get the cooldown on Infested drop, and that can help deny a lot of those altar channels. So we'll see how that plays, and it is going to be up to him to really try and make that happen.
Already the quick engage on the top with that polymorph there. Great body blocks the power slide in with that arcane flare. Cattle goes down in Illidan very early. Great focus and just a nice pick from Naventic.
Hey, that Brightwing character's not too bad against Illidan, Jake.
yeah, that's pick number 1. We'll keep the tabs.
Well, we are going to see the rotation now for Murloc Geniuses. They're going to try and salvage a little bit. Obviously, with that many heroes up top from Naventic, that allows them to get a little bit of pressure in the bottom lane, but we are probably going to see that. You've got to be very careful of the rotations up. There are a few alleyways for Naventic to try and create havoc, and they started that out very early. Look for them to try and continue to put the pressure on.
Alrighty, saw Van just had to use his blink very early there and just kind of making sure he's safe. We do have the Brightwing versus Illidan in the top, and you'd think that would be a very favorable situation for Illidan, right? But it really isn't. Brightwing has to play safe and safely soak, but she's not going to be completely bullied out of her lane. As always, the first spawn of the altar is going to be all 3 on the table here. Who do you think has the stronger early game team fight?
I mean, the biggest thing right now is Naventic. They're able to turn a fight in the blink of an eye, and blink, I guess we use almost metaphorically there with Brightwing, and she can put so much pressure on. You can see the polymorph on the Cattle, but the minute Kemba needs to engage in a fight, he's still got his shift there to be able to get in and create something, create some magic.
All right, so right now, the way they're postured is Naventic has most of their team in the bottom. Tassadar was looking like he might try to stall out that left altar, but opts to leave it alone. So that will go the side of Murloc Geniuses, giving themselves a left side altar. Kenma is all alone in that top side versus Cattle, and that's a fight where he will slowly have to back away, but we do have the rotation in from Tomster. So 2v1, they should be able to take this. My question is can Naventic stall long enough here in the bottom?
That's the biggest thing. We saw Leeming trying to throw that orb out. If Kenma can get in here, he's going to be able to shift down and to be able to help his teammate down below, but it does look like there is going to be yet another kill and another rotation, but Zuna is going to go down to the bottom. So a little bit of a trade there, but we look at the tower damage, or the core damage. That actually favored Murloc Geniuses.
Yeah, so they managed to get 2 out of 3, which is great, and picking up that kill on ETC is actually really nice. Actually losing that player so early in the fight, not really expected. That makes it a lot easier for Murlocs to stay toe-to-toe with Team Naventic. So experience pretty darn even right now. And although we did see the 1 additional altar going their way, that's not the biggest of deals.
It's not, and I want to take a look at the talents in particular. We're seeing completely different builds than I think we probably would have. Mental Acuity coming out on the side of Tassadar to be able to keep vision, to be able to keep control of what they're trying to do, especially with their heavy rotations. And then Medusa Blades for Zagara. That's the other thing. I'm not sure if that really favors going up as a nice use of Iron Skin there by Johanna to avoid that power slide, but I'm not sure how that really fits against a frontline ETC by himself.
This makes me think Nidus Network a lot. We actually saw this exact style out of Coffin on Dragonshire during the qualifiers when they actually earned themselves their spot in this tournament. And he did go for Medusa Blades paired with that Nidus Network. He just got a Nidus set down in all 3 lanes, made sure he had great coverage with his creep spread, and he just had so much pressure, so much soak, so much push. He had the whole package.
Well, we see a little bit of a contest up in the top lane for that camp, and Fan is being punished. He's going to have the shift in from Brightwing. How about those Pumpkin Sappers going over to Murloc Geniuses?
Yeah, really clean game so far, and look, they've left Coffin all alone here in the bottom. He's got not just a creep highway, he has a creep domain in this bottom, and he's going to put on a lot of pressure. We also have this altar spawning in the bottom center, so this is exactly what they want. They have almost a full level lead right now, and Murloc Geniuses, if they get 2 altars ahead, that starts to become a little problematic.
The biggest thing I think when you see Tassadar there with Mental Acuity is he's going to be able to clear up a lot of that creep that's going to be coming in from Zagara, which kind of limits a lot of what you can do with Nidus. So I'm kind of curious if that's the thought process behind that, but it is time for the next altar phase here, Jake, and they're on even talent tiers.
Yeah, very, very close in experience overall. overall. Big E throws in his full combo, doesn't quite hit anything, so it's going to be a short cooldown there for the orb before it can do a whole lot, and Big E has been rotated away. Cattle going deep on that Illidan, just trying to be a bit of a pain, but Psalm is the one that ends up eating up Polymorph, so this does maybe possibly opens up that opening for Cattle to go a little bit harder than he'd like. We do see the Oracle being used here from Thompson, getting eyes on, and a beautiful power slide forward from Zuna, but Psalm, the one that is so very low in this fight, needs to be cautious from the big orbs flying his way on big impact. You actually see him rotating down to tap the well. Wow.
That was a big chunk of damage out of there. Fan being the one to rotate around on Zeratul basically disrupted the entire back line to force Murloc Geniuses to back off, and they were able to really take control of that fight because of the rotation by Fan, holding on to the singularity and just using that against Cigar. We just saw complete disruption by Fan alone to be able to secure that.
Yeah, really nice start here. Nice turnaround on the side of Naventic, evening things up. The experience, everything just about even as it gets, and we even see all this creep that was so hardly worked for Coffin has more or less just been cleaned up. On top lane, we do have that Zeratul just kind of roaming around, making sure he has that soak for the team. But the big concern right now is just level 10.
It is. As you can see, that early advantage that we saw from Zagara getting into that bottom lane has allowed them to keep the pressure on and to allow them to get that experience, and it's forcing odd rotations out from Naventic. They only have 2 kills, so I think that rotation advantage that they wanted to establish early hasn't necessarily worked in their favor, as a lot of that's being pushed back on them just due to those waves coming in.
Yeah, that's true. Ever since that one pickoff they had in the top lane, that's really the only value they've gotten. And look at that awareness. Fury just waiting and denying Fan any kind of scouting. It's not like he's just trying to keep him in his base, but he's denying him any kind of scouting around that space. So, an Illidan gets picked off in the middle of the map, though, so that's not going to be good with Cattle falling here.
That could be Illidan death number 3 there if we're keeping tally. But level 10 has been picked up by Murloc Geniuses. We are not going to be seeing the hunt, but we will be seeing Nidus coming out, G.
Yeah, and this is like the classic for Coffin. As soon as we saw Medusa Blades, I was just thinking, you know what, it's got to be the Nidus. He wants to put on that big pressure. It's a big map. Fans staying on the point as long as possible for the rest team to get in here. Not only do they get in, but they land a nice 2-man VP. Can they follow up? The first wall is down. We do see the damage coming in from Big E. Coffin does end up falling, and the resets are here. Big E landing the big damage onto Psalm as the next target, but the Incendiary will top him off as he re-engages. Go for the throat, not getting killed because of the beautiful shield coming out from Tomster, and Naventic looking to get the better ends of things. That's June being bodied in. The combo comes through, the reset there once more. Naventic with a big win.
Murloc Geniuses was so low in mana. You can see Fury and Psalm basically forced to retreat. They had nothing to re-engage with, and it ended up costing them 5 kills to 1. The next altars are going to be spawning. This seems like it should be at least 1 for Naventic, but they're posturing for 2 right now.
Yeah, it might seem a little greedy, but the whole side of Murloc's isn't quite there yet. You do see Kenma actually barely out of range of that shield or the glare coming from Fury. So a bit unfortunate. Both of those altars going the way of Naventic, who now have an 8-point lead.
There are so many heroics still on the board for Naventic that they can turn a fight at any time, and I think it allowed Murloc Geniuses to be like, wait a minute, guys, let's play this as safe as we can. No need to engage. They've got a lot of big heroics that are still on a very long cooldown phase, but it's 32-24. Naventic starting to turn this game around in the middle.
Yeah, but the experience is still pretty close. There's still a lot of opportunity for Murloc to, get themselves, get their rear in gear, if you will, and get ready for a nice fight. But, Emerald Wind, we haven't even seen that come into play yet. That's something that can truly disrupt and put your Greymane, Illidan, or Bold in a really awkward position. And that's something they have to be super aware of, because if that pushes you and your Rhaegar too far apart, you just get burst so very quickly from the Zeratul Li Ming.
I wonder if we're seeing Cawthon maybe second guess that Nidus network, as we see a little bit of an invasion coming in from Naventic as they're looking to try and body out Murloc Geniuses from the camp on their friendly side. Brightwing starting to shift in to even this up, and you can see the re-engage by Zuna.
Yeah, notice that he didn't even use his Nidus to get down here. He's already done manually, but he's going to get a lot of damage in the backside. Emerald Wind disrupting everyone, push them into that Void Prison in the back, and Cattle completely secluded, but barely does not survive as Fan blinks in and picks up the kill. That gives the resets, the kills going forward, but we do have the single kill there from the Greymane. Psalm trying to turn things, make it a little bit evener, but the Mosh Pit locking him in place. Arcane Flare getting the center damage, the power slide of Zuna. Does he stay alive? The face shift barely going to get him with that shield, and Fury will be the next one to fall.
Naventic just turned that fight on a dime. The minute they had the isolation there with the Void Prison, they singled out Illidan, took him down, and were able to rotate that in. The fact that we saw Zuna able to stay alive was crucial there, and that was a huge power play. Think, this is 2 altars now. Next one, Jake, is going to be 3, and this is a huge moment right now for Naventic to be picking these up.
Having Emerald Wind and having just the additional healing from the passive of Brightwing is having a big impact, and the clutch shields coming out last minute from Tomster on Tassadar. just getting away with so much. Really nice start here. The bottom altar is currently being contested here, but Fan going to force them away. So we had an 8-point lead. Now it's 12, looking to be full 16 advantage. Basically, double the health remaining on the side of Naventic.
It's a really tough spot for Murloc to be in. They're down a talent tier. They're trying to defend this. They know they can't give up too many shots, especially the amount of pressure that they've been giving up. As we see Fury disrupting the top and Kenma down at the bottom, it does look like he is going to be able to channel that. And those are more shots coming out for Naventic, and they're really starting to put the pressure on Murloc.
You know, you were saying before that last fight, the big fight we had, maybe Coffin is starting to regret his decision to go for the Nidus. I think that's got to be exactly what's going through his head. Like, sure, he did just go straight from bottom to the top lane to get that soak and have that pressure on the map, but he hasn't exactly been gaining his team an advantage. He's just getting a little bit of soak out of it. Whereas in that last fight where he already rotated manually on his feet, he could have landed the biggest maw with that flank.
The mental acuity pickup at level 4 has been so crucial. We've seen Brightwing targeting that. You've got Tassadar being able to single everything out. They're just so focused on neutralizing anything Zagara can really bring to the table, and it's working out really well for them. But 13 has been picked up for Murloc Geniuses. Again, the next temple phase or altar phase is going to be 3 altars, and this is Murloc's moment. They have to do something soon.
Okay, well, they're looking in here at Zuna, but Zuna is going to be quite slippery in this moment. Brightwing still in the top getting that soak, so they're matching that global presence, and a full level lead still being maintained. Now, you were talking about just cleaning up the creep. That's exactly what Ken was doing in the top lane right now.
The hardest part about that is Zagara went protective coding at level 13 to be able to take less damage while on the creep. Jake, that's really hard to take less damage if there is no creep.
Oh, the struggle. The struggle is real, and Naventic has the number of Coffin, it seems, right now, but they're trying to just get themselves back on the map, looking for this mercenary camp. Zeratul will scout it out, not going to be able to steal it, just has eyes on exactly where their position is. You noticed Naventic was looking to maybe try to get a cheeky party bush, not going to spend too much effort towards that. We are now in at the 5th spawn of the altars, where we have all 3 spawning.
Murloc has to try and make something happen. Fan with the awareness, being able to blink out, but he's got to be careful. Ooh. The Void Prison used there. Illidan was picked off on the other side of the map. As we go back to the middle, we see Brightwing, who had just shifted in, trying to put the pressure on. Fan going in on Psalm. He doesn't have to do much more, but this should be another 2 altars now with that pick of Illidan.
Mosh Pit spent to kill Illidan. Void Prison used spent to keep Zeratul alive. So 2 big heroics down on the side of Naventic, but they're about to have 16. Even if they are up a hero, it's not the biggest win in the world. Coffin's going to be able to safely grab that altar on the left side. It looks like Naventic will once again get the better end of things, picking up 2. Problem being is, although those heroics are on a long cooldown, only 8 hit points remain from Murlocs.
And that's the biggest thing. If you're trying to sacrifice those heroics and you pick up 8 shots on your core, I think it's a pretty decent trade in favor of Naventic. There hasn't been anything crazy. Somehow I look up, Jake, there's 10 kills on the side of Naventic. They've just managed to pick them apart as time goes on, but Psalm's starting to go in here.
And that's going to be a very quick kill. The Ancestral just moments too late. Naventic looking to just snowball this forward, waiting for that to expire. No, the force ball locking Fury into this prison of the Emerald. Win insult to injury. Naventic picking up 2 very big kills.
Masterful use of your heroics coming out from your supports to block him off and then force him back as great as you want to be able to sit there, and they seem to be rotating up. This is going to be a boss. That's going to put them at 4 shots left, which means the next altar phase could very easily be game.
I mean, Cattle is looking to posture here, but he's already struggled to stay alive. No way they're going to be able to take a 3v5, even if the Headless Horseman is being attempted. So that's going to be 4 points. As you mentioned, 1 more altar to end it all.
It's been so interesting because there haven't been huge 5-on-5 engagements. Naventic's rotation on this map alone has allowed them to put in the pressure. How many times have we seen Illidan hop into Metamorphosis to try and keep a fight going or anything like that? It just hasn't happened. And the rotations alone, where you think that would favor somebody like a Zagara with Johanna trying to get the clear, it just hasn't.
Well, Naventic sitting in that commanding position right now with the level 16 advantage once again, about to be nullified, but that only 1 altar spawning. So this gives a small bit of hope to Murloc Geniuses to keep the dream alive if they can survive this fight. Condemn pulling in 3, big Ancestral going in, but Kenma is still alive and getting out because of the beautiful Moshman. Cattle gets in the back, finds the kill. The resets are here though, and Big E just laying out the damage. Right now, Cattle is doing his best to stay alive, but VP separating it from his team. This gives a small window. Oh my goodness, Johanna is still alive, but Li Ming will stop that. Going in deep is Fan looking for the kills, but they don't even need it. They can just go back to the altar.
I mean, they've got 3 kills to 1. The next altar is here. It's 4 shots left, Jake. If they don't secure this, this is Murloc Geniuses. They're not going to be out of the tournament if they go down here, but they are going to be going down to the losers bracket, but there's nothing they can do. That's Impact. This is game.
GG's Naventic with a clean 2-0 victory over Murloc Geniuses, advancing on forward from Group A.
You know, I sat down with Dunk earlier when they played this during the first set, and he said, man, that's one of the fastest, games that we've seen on Towers, the fastest competitive. I mean, it just seems like Naventic, which this map originally, people will be like, Naventic's not that great at Towers of Doom. They're not. We think we can take them there. Guys, that's 2-0. They got taken there, and they've dominated both games.
Yeah, I mean, running very, standard drafts for the most part, but making the solo Tyrael work. They went with the Brightwing with Emerald Wind, great control with the Force Wall and the Emerald Wind, the whole package there. GG's from Naventic.
The thing that we've seen about that Emerald Wind is the raw healing numbers that have come out, and then the great use of the isolation for Emerald Wind itself, and I think that's just been a great pickup. Brightwing is in a good spot. I know she's got some changes that have just happened recently, but Kenma, if anybody's going to make Brightwing work, that's going to be him.
Well, we can take a look at some of these plays from this event now. This VP here in the top, just locking them all down, giving them that big window. Cawthon just got completely annihilated there. Couldn't see the big value coming up from the Ancestral as often as you'd like to see. Like, even the engage there with Psalm, although it looked like they finally had a moment of opportunity, he has no mana. He has no capability of, like, following up, keeping that moment, that train going. They find June with the beautiful body blocks, just the great control and the power slides, and that's basically what the fights look like, even with the flanks, even with the rotations, never getting value out of the Nidus network, and Maw could have turned things around.
It's just so much that we saw. The mental acuity pickup was so huge, but it's now going to be time to pass it up to TJ for an interview with the winners of Naventic.
Thank you very much, guys. That's right. I'm joined here by Fan from Team Naventic after another 2-0 victory. And first off, congratulations, man. Big win here. You guys moving on from this group. So first off, I want to talk to you about game one. You guys left Falstad up through the pick and ban phase. Was this something that was intentional? Because I know a lot of the casters and some people backstage were saying that's kind of unheard of right now with Falstad being a hero that's so powerful. Was that intentional? What were you guys' strategy with leaving that up?
Yeah, so it was definitely intentional. Falstad is a really strong hero on most maps, but on Tomb, he's not quite as strong. It's like a bigger map, and we know Cawthon really loves to play Zagara. Like, Murloc as a whole loves Zagara, and Zagara is really strong right now as well, so we just had to debate which one we wanted to play against, and that was Falstad.
All right, well, it seemed to work out for you guys. You guys were able to capitalize and win that game pretty handily. Let's move on to game two a little bit. You went with this is still game one. You went with the Zool, and you played it with a little bit of an interesting build. You went Backlash for your talent early. You played him sort of like a melee assassin. Is this something that just a playstyle thing, or was there some type of other strategy that went into this type of build with Zool?
I wouldn't say it's really a playstyle thing. It's more that they keep nerfing Zool, so like Shade isn't that great anymore unless they're really auto attack heavy. And Backlash just keeps getting better and better relative to Shade because Shade's getting nerfed so much. And yeah, that's why I'm picking Backlash. And I don't know, it's just kind of the whole playstyle. When you pick Backlash, you want to just like pop it and run in there, like go ham, because you want the damage on as many heroes as possible. So it's kind of just how it ended up being played out.
Yeah, it seemed to work out for you guys. And then game two was pretty close. I just want to get your quick thoughts on your overall composition in game number two, because you guys had an interesting comp. You went with the Zeratul. What was the thought process behind the Zeratul?
Basically, right now, at least like for that game, I felt like I was like every melee assassin was up on the table, and with our two comps in mind, I felt like I was fine with playing any melee assassin into any other melee assassin, so we didn't really care which one they took, because there were like no matter what they took, anything else was fine for me as well. So yeah.
Well, it seemed to work out for you guys. Other teams weren't having as much success with Zeratul, so it's good to see him have some success so far. But thank you very much, man. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing you guys play later on in the weekend. But we're going to have to go to a quick break, guys, before we jump into the next match. But don't go anywhere. More Heroes of the Storm Fall Regionals right after this.
Hello, my name is Richard Tran. My gamer tag is Cladius. I'm 22 years old and I play for Astral Authority. Astral Authority is a professional team in HotS. We have Battery, our tank player. He's one of my ex-teammates and we used to play in Blaze together. We have Dark Chimera, our support player. He's really good mechanically. We have Talking Trees, one of our range flex players. He's a really cool, chill guy to play with. He's always outgoing. We have Frozen X, our other range flex. He's a really smart guy.
I think the first time we practiced, like, we knew that this was going to be the roster coming in. You know, we'd replace 2 people, but it's really coming together. Dark, trees, and Frozen, like, we all get along so well. Like, it's so nice to, you know, be on a team where everyone's really good friends. You know, we want to win, but we also care about each other, and we're still having a great time doing it. Coming to this regional, Astral Authority has a lot to prove with the missing the first 2 qualifiers and then qualifying in the 3rd, and then being a little bit delayed on some scrim time in between some of the issues that led up to us being here. Like, this is our regional, and none of that delay is going to affect us.